Hi everybody, it's Rachel Neff here, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about my blended learning station rotation model classroom today. So just to give you a little idea of what I thought about before I started is I figured out how large my room was, and I took the things that were in my room and kind of rearranged them to create a space that would work for my collaborative, independent, and direct instruction teacher station. So I also have 19 students, and one thing I wanted to do was to make sure each student is able to have a seat at a table for any other whole group instruction that might be necessary. I also took into account the fact that my small group rotations, I will have about 6 or 7 students in a group. So along the outside of my classroom, I have counter space with upper and lower cabinets. And I want to draw your attention to this back counter space with the 5 light blue dots. Those are going to be 5 of my independent stations. Students will be working through their blended learning path on those. And then I also have student table right here for independent. They'll be working on that learning path as well. I kept the independent station close to the teacher table simply because I want to make sure that I can see what they're doing, make sure they're staying on task as well. One question that I do have for everyone that is watching, and if you have any thoughts, is this is a half wall. There's a counter space on the far side from me, so I cannot see students working back there. It's about 15 feet of space that is completely unusable right now, maybe closer to 10 feet, but I can't see what students are doing on the other side, so I would love some ideas on what I could do to utilize that space best. There are cabinets on the other side which are great for storage, but it's about 15 feet of counter space that is not being used, I think, to its best potential. Then we get to these 4 collaborative tables here. I have them spread out a little bit more and as away from the independent and teacher station as possible to minimize disruptions. Each student comfortably seats 4 or 5 students, but you could have upwards of 5 or 6 students at a table because my 4th graders are pretty small, and I think if they're working closely and if they're friends, they don't mind kind of squishing into all work together and all have their say in what's happening. The door is in this top left corner right here, and then along this far left wall, this is a whiteboard, and this is where I will project my daily rotations along with some directions. I have my teacher direct instruction table in this back corner. I like that I can see all of my independent stations. I can see my collaborative groups as well as my other independent stations. So I have a really good vantage point for all of that. Some other things I would like to know are currently each student has an assigned seat in my classroom. I think I'm going to unassign all seating and allow students to choose their own seats, or at least that is my end goal for students to choose their own seats at each station. I think until we get to that point, I may assign students a particular seat or give a suggestion of who should sit where, things like that, just so they understand what I'm expecting from them during each station. But my end goal is to have students choosing their own seats. I also have enough seats at all of the tables that all students can sit there during whole group instruction if and when it would be necessary. And this brings me to another idea that I had was to create a gathering space in the middle of the classroom. So all the tables would get pushed to the edges of the classroom. And in the middle here, I'd like to have a whole group space marked on the floor with masking tape so we can all gather there together and have a more intimate conversation about things. And also simply to get kids up and out of their seats, have them sit on the floor if they want to, and work that way, which is a little bit different than what we usually do. One thing I will note is I will always allow students the option to sit in a seat because I do have a couple students that are more rigid and would prefer to be sitting up at a table, and they're not necessarily ones that want to lay on the floor. Finally, and I got that idea from Mary Wade's Edutopia article. Finally, I want to kind of create these as learning zones, which I got an idea from the Perrier article. I liked the sound of it. I thought it sounded like a great idea for me and my kids, so I wanted to have learning zones. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas on my classroom and any questions that you might have.